So we're at Camden WMA. We're at blind 74, and we're right on the edge of some corn that we planted, and an area that was planted in millet last year. And this year we just kind of let nature take its course. And what we got was a stand of volunteer Japanese millet, and also there's some wild millets out there, some red sprangletop and other native wetland plants. So this is a good example of different types of management. And the moist soil is grown in this particular field. This field stays wet, so it really allows the native plants to come on and thrive. In my opinion, it does have a greater chance of success because it can withstand some flooding. The army worms are not near as bad on the moist soil and the wild millets as they are the planted millets. And just like, army worms can get in the corn too. As far as input, of course, input is a whole lot less as well, because you don't have to plant it every year. So you get plant diversity. When you plant something, a lot of times it turns into a monoculture of whatever you planted. So you get a little more diversity with these plant communities. When you have different plant diversity, that usually means you have different invertebrate diversity. Diversity is good when it comes to wildlife management. So all we have done to this particular field this year is we sprayed it with the broadleaf herbicide. That and having to dig the beaver dams to get the water off slowly. That's the only two things we've done. We also fertilized it. We did put fertilizer on it. I almost forgot about that. And this, when we plant millet, it's usually in July or the first part of August is normally when we plant millet or buckwheat, something like that. And a lot of times it's dry. Well, this has more time to set good roots. And so it's hardier, it withstands the droughts better. And this also, if it gets flooded, these native wetland plants, they can withstand being flooded as long as they're not completely overtopped. So if some water gets in there, that's actually a good thing, as long as it doesn't completely overtop them. Mainly when it comes to the moist soil stuff is you need to set back plant succession. You need to restart it. So what we're after is annual plants, annual grasses, annual forbs. Once this kind of starts turning into more of a perennial community, or we start getting trees coming up in it, something like that, that's when we would come in and disc it and maybe put some Japanese millet on it. But it's all about setting back that plant succession because we're after the annual plants, not the perennials. And as far as crop rotations, that's something else I want to talk about. Common practice in West Tennessee for farmers is to rotate their crops. I don't know of any farmers that plant corn on the same ground year after year. And a lot of the areas we're planting corn in have been planted in corn on the same ground for decades. And that's not good for the soil. So that's something else we have to keep in mind is the soil health. Another thing I want to talk about was soil compaction. So this area gets flooded every year, sometimes multiple times a year if there's a big rain event. But of course it's flooded every winter for the ducks and for waterfowl hunting. But what that does, that flooding over and over again compacts the soil. And so something else we need to think about is addressing that soil compaction. And the only way to do that is to till the ground, to disc it, deep disking. The problem with that, or a potential problem, is that's going to slow us down as far as planting. So I just want the hunters to be aware that in the future you may see some of our areas where we've planted corn, you may see them getting disked, and that may slow us down on getting the seed in because that takes time. All these areas are, in the summertime, they're below the level of the lake, so they're low areas, and corn is meant to be planted in drier soils. So we're actually, if it wasn't for the levees, this all would be flooded, during the summertime, and we're trying to grow corn in here. The level of the lake affects the water table. So in the summer, when Kentucky lakes at summer pool, that brings the water table in the bottoms up and makes the soils even wetter in the low areas.